What's up? I'll come with another video. So I wanted to say, leading up to this, if you're following this series, I was saying that you have people that can be concerned about you, people that can have sympathy for you, and people that can have empathy for you. And any of those can be different degrees problematic for either others or ourselves looking at us like that. But I would say that the greatest and the necessary of which is empathy, because life isn't viable without empathy. I don't think I've helped a lot of people at different times when I have the footing to do so. And I have also received help when I had the footing to need that. And a lot of it has been sought and unsought, but the most critical of which I'd say has likely been unsought is that life sees you, people see you, and when you're hurting, people see that. And when you're in need, people also see that, and life responds to that, and that's empathy. And I think that once we lose that, it's already game. It had been game over when we're getting close to that, but when we lose empathy, it's game over, because that's the actual support and sustenance, and that's the only thing keeping us from, like, like you saw those movie Lord of the Rings, right? And they're like falling from all these like high. So there's this big bad. So you see like the wizard. He's this wise wizard. And you think that someone that wise wouldn't need help, but then you see him get knocked his ass off of like a cliff and fall down with like a creature, but somehow he comes back later in the film and it's all good, man. Yeah, I got fucked up back there. I don't even remember my ass, but it's all good, man, because I'm so bad and I'm so wise and I'm so great and so magical. But there would have had to been like a safety net down there, because as I understand, a human being, which he was still somewhat human there, that falls from that height to like some maybe rock precipice or fire, you can't recover from that unless there had been a safety net there. So as he got his ass knocked down like that, he had got supported by a safety net, Gandalf that was, but that's not presented in the film. But that's what would have to be there just logically. So it's the same with all of us. As magical as we think we are, as wise, as hardworking, as handsome, as clever, as this, as that, our ass is getting knocked down at a certain point, and if there's not a safety net, we're not going to be seen or heard from again. But a lot of us are still here, so there would have to be a safety net, but that's not advertised. But so with that, I want to commend empathy and support and collaboration and mercy where it's needed. And I'll also be grateful for that when it's needed, as it's needed, how it's needed, but there's still nuance to all things. So so I want to say first off that all of us need help, but differently. And we all have obligations and strengths, and some of our obligations are a function of our strengths, which is a function of our unique contribution that we're blessed to be able to afford ourselves and others. That's part of our different endowments as people. But it's somewhat different in terms of like age, stature, background, ethnicity, gender. There's nuance with that, but nothing has to be limited or decisive or definite, but there's different nuance within that. So I think that with the comment I'm getting ready to make is that I wouldn't look at women and children this way, but I would, just from my experience as an adult male, a man, this is how I look at that, having been helped before and having helped many people in subtle in ways that if there's probably at least, I can say there must be at least 500 people, I'd say probably 500 people over the last 10 to 15 years, that if this video were to land on their YouTube, and I hope they're on better footing than they were, and they saw my face, between us, we would know what we mean to each other. And as much as a shiny face as I've been to them before, maybe one day, and some of them already have been a shining face to me, and I'd be grateful, because the greatest things go both ways. Respect, mercy, esteem, support go both ways. But I can say there's at least 500 people, men, women, and children, and families, that if they were to see my face, they would remember my face as a particular experience that was intended toward them with good faith. But in some of the works of the East, they say that there's something called panhandling. So what I think is that all people can and will need help, but the standpoint to ask, there's the author Arthur Avalon says that in some of the holy texts, I think in Western texts like the Bible, it says that, or there's an adage, I'm not sure if it's a scripture or just a cultural adage, that the greatest helps those who help themselves. And what Arthur Avalon has said, that some of your simple lessons and teachings and sayings and aphorisms, they have way deeper meaning and function and dynamics than you could appreciate on the surface. As simple as that would say, the greatest helps those who help themselves. If you really understood the reality of that and how that's possible and what that means, that is a solemn and a awesome statement that is it can't really be conveyed in words or even understood by a person. Ultimately, at one particular phase, it takes a lifetime to understand what that means. That's the type of thing Arthur Avon said. But from that standpoint, I think that as a man, as a male, we have strengths and gifts, and we should ask for support when we've spent our wherewithal. That is our resource, our ability, whether personal, mental, intellectual, financial, social. When we've done the best we can. Now here we ask for help. We are helped. Because otherwise we already had it within us to help ourselves, which is still help from without. It's part of help from within, but it's still significant at that point. But if I were to get comfortable or ask for help that I hadn't put forth effort to get there, then it's a little bit of a disservice to myself and potentially others. And they say that in the East, that when you do that, you can sustain an injury to your countenance, your appearance, your energy, your aura, where you become a little bit less attractive when you maybe impose yourself on another person. But we still all do need help, and what we can and can't do is still relative. So sometimes you might have more fight in you than you thought you had, but that you thought you didn't. That might be where you're at too. So I'm not saying that people have to lift heaven and earth and hell before they ask for help. But I think heaven and earth and hell will move when you need help, where you need help, as you've done the best you can when mercy is granted to you. But from that standpoint, there's different ways of helping people. So, and there's sometimes you can recognize similarities in nature. So one of the most brutal things you'll hear about in nature, even more brutal than like wolves attacking sheep or tigers attacking deer, is sometimes you'll have like a dog like that dog barking. That's a domesticated dog of maybe a different size. But sometimes in rural areas you'll have a dog like that, and then it'll be maybe extended or have some scope of freedom from its owner, and it'll encounter some actual coyotes or a single coyote. And then that coyote will court the dog, banter with the dog, engage the dog, take the dog at a distance from the owner, and then introduce the dog to other coyotes, and then the dynamic will change, and they'll consume the dog. That's dog eat dog. They'll isolate the dog and consume the dog after having courted it. And so a dog is now being devoured by its own kind in the most heinous and also dishonest way. And that's the type of stuff we experience sometimes as brothers. So like, you, as much as you like to help people, I think that and this is just for awareness and just learning, is that I'm not trying to make anyone paranoid, because life is already way more dangerous than we could appreciate, and we're only here because of mercy. But so you get a person, if someone's like asking for help, like on a street corner, you'll see that a lot. They shouldn't be walking up approaching cars, because that's active now. So you have that much activity, why are you asking for help? But if they really are down and out, you should feel it in your heart to help them, but they shouldn't be that active, because they could flip the script on you if they're approaching you that way. But people have to do what they have to do to survive. So I'm not judging anyone or saying don't do that if that's what you have to do to survive, or don't help someone if they don't do that. But that's my take. Another one is if people are asking you like for cigarettes. So like a brother like me, so I might be like in a public place, and like all these people that got all this money, I'm up on all these hard times, and you ask me for cigarettes. One, that could be an undercover law enforcement, because you're not supposed to be passing loose cigarettes. And then two, when they're asking you for cigarettes like that, they're more so interviewing you, engaging you, because you shouldn't be that cheap that you have to ask for a single cigarette. And if that's the case, you can't afford that habit. But also they're trying to see they're trying to gauge your personal strength, but also your constitution and your orientation as a person. Are you oriented towards violence, towards protecting yourself? How does your voice sound? You look like this, but how does your voice sound? What can I hear in your voice? But then also more deeply, who may you or may not you be associated with? So if and when I get over on you, which it wouldn't be that easy to get over on you, and I already feel comfortable to engage you, which is already a little bit of a confrontation. Any engagement, positive or negative, is still confrontational and can become confrontational. Are you associated with someone? So if I F you over, I have to worry about something coming behind you. And the more honest and agreeable you are, the more that you can be appreciated as a potential host and victim, is one thing that we experience as brothers.